Today we are looking at the chemistry of bread. Yeast is a leavening agent and it consumes glucose. Yeast is actually a fungus and it helps the bread rise. Yeast works by consuming the glucose and creating ethanol and carbon dioxide. The carbon dioxide gets trapped in the bread and creates air bubbles.
Another ingredient in bread is sugar, which has many different purposes. One purpose of sugar is to act as fuel for yeast in its fermentation reaction. Fermentation is a chemical breakdown of substances, usually by giving off heat.
Another purpose of sugar is to create the brown crust on the outside of the bread. This is done through the Maillard reactions. A Maillard reaction is a chemical reaction between amino acids and reducing sugars.
This is the Maillard reaction found in bread.
Now it's time for a bread down! We'll be using a bowl, oil,
Flour,
salt,
sugar,
water.
and most importantly, yeast.
First, we'll add 2/3 cup of sugar into the warm water, along with the 1.5 tablespoons of yeast. Stir until it foams. Next, you put the yeast mixture in the bowl, and then add your salt and oil. Next, you put in 1.5 teaspoons of salt and 1/4 cup of oil. Salt helps shield charged gluten molecules from one another. Without the charges repelling each other, the gluten molecules can get closer together.
Now we're going to mix up our mixture and add in 1 cup of flour at a time. Kneading the dough helps create more hydrogen bonds form between gluten proteins, making the structure more solid.
Then we will spray the bowl to make sure it doesn't stick. Once you put the bread in it, flip it. You put the bread in the bowl, flip it to make sure oil gets on both sides.
bread after an hour.
I'm gonna punch the dough.
We're gonna cut it in half and put half into the sprayed pan.
Now I'm gonna cut the bread in half so that we can make 2 batches.
The bread has to rise again for 20 minutes.
Now you put it in the oven at 350 for 30 minutes. We let our second batch rise for longer, so there should be more carbon dioxide trapped in the bread. We will test this by seeing how much carbon dioxide is actually in the bread by comparing the 2 loaves. This is the first batch that we did, and as you can see, there are a lot less air pockets than the second loaf, which was rising for longer, making more carbon dioxide trapped in the bread.
Bread was a very important food in the medieval century because it fed large amounts of people.
Yeast was an important discovery that made bread last longer and taste better.
This was used for 3,000 years until baking powder was invented.